a lot of us have a mentality, especially as Black people, I don't want to share my business, right? And not sharing your business is keeping you stuck and unhealthy. And so I encourage you to have the courage to find a safe couple who you know you can literally lay your burdens down. And because you guys are on the same page as far as how you see marriage, they can help guide you out of the space that you're in. Hello, hello. How y'all doing out there?
So I need the men in the room to do me a favor. Can you make some noise for the ladies that showed up today? Yes, okay, then I need y'all to do an even bigger cheer for the ladies at home, waiting to hear all of the tea that happened here. Can we give a round for them? I know people are taking care of babies and work and all of that, so I want to acknowledge them as well, because I know there's some women that wanted to be here, and so I wanted to acknowledge everyone. What happened in that room was powerful.
Beautiful.
This is such a beautiful space. I just want to first start by congratulating you for investing in yourself, like your time, your money, your energy, and realizing that community is so important and so vital, and you needed that, right? One of the things we talked about in the room was the importance of community, right? So the men were able to come here today to get poured into, but what is your advice on the importance of continuing, like connecting and having that support? And I'll be honest with y'all, before meeting Shannon and Shirley, I didn't even know like marriage coaches existed, right? Like we talk so much about go to counseling, go to counseling. We have a coach for like every area of our life, but for the most important relationships in our life, we don't have a coach. That doesn't make any sense, right? So talk about the importance of support, not just in marriage, but like in relationships.
Well, I mean, we can't do marriage relationships, period, alone, because we're in our own head. And so it sounds good. We're justifying things. We're making things a lot simpler than what we should be, right? So I just believe that community is what has changed my life. It's what has changed Shannon's life. The people who are in community with us, it has changed their life. You just can't do it alone. And listen, why would you want to do it alone? Right? Like we bumped our heads so that you don't have to. Right? And listen, that doesn't mean that you're not going to experience challenges, but there are some things that so many of us have experienced that if we were in community, we would have not experienced those particular things, whatever those particular things are, right? Shannon and I went through so much. We did have community, but we didn't pull on our community, right? And so we went into our shell, and as we were in our shell, we were doing things that were destructive to our marriage. But if we had a pulled on our community would have been like, hey, yo, okay, no, we're not doing that. Our community would have prayed with us. Our community would have been able to check on us. Our community would have been able to be like, hey, what's going on? Are we good? What do we need to do? And so, I just encourage you all to be in community. I don't care what community, as long as it's life giving, as long as it's in alignment with the principles that you and your wife or your husband has. And listen, for those of you who are single, you still need to be in community so that you can understand how to create a healthy relationship.
So when you talk about community, talk to us also about creating safe spaces to share, right? So there are certain places we can go where we can get loved and poured on, and there are certain places we can actually grow, right? Like we can actually be transparent. But there's going to be different stuff that comes up in your relationship. Where do you feel like are the safest places for people to actually discuss what's going on?
So are you talking about once you're in a relationship?
Yeah. So once you're in a relationship, you're either dating or you're married. What do you say like are those
Okay.
safe spaces? Kind of like within. So we got the community. We know we need to come together. But then the next level of that is actually like discussing, deeper issues.
So of course, as we know, right, the counseling piece. I mean, it's just getting a counselor or a coach. But outside of that, it is so important to get in with people who have been where you're trying to go, where you're wanting to go, right? So seasoned couples. That's like that is one of the safest spaces that you can get into. Because I have marriage mentors, I was able to talk to them, and they were able to say, "Yo, this is why you're having challenges in your marriage." Right? So a lot of us have a mentality, especially as Black people, I don't want to share my business, right? And not sharing your business is keeping you stuck and unhealthy. And so I encourage you to have the courage to find a safe couple who you know you can literally lay your burdens down. And because you guys are on the same page as far as how you see marriage, they can help guide you out of the space that you're in.
Something so good that was mentioned earlier in the last panel. They were talking about idols, right?
Mm.
And so we kind of talked about that a little
Mhm.
bit. So making a relationship an idol, making a person an idol,
Mhm.
making, like you said, maybe food an
Mhm.
idol. Talk about how, one, that's a struggle, right? That's a challenge. But then two, how that could be an issue within your relationships.
So it's so crazy because that the season that I'm in right now is really dealing with my idolatry, right? And so there were certain things I literally had no idea that I was making an idol. And as I was telling the ladies, I've made my children an idol, my husband an idol, my pain an idol, my problems an idol, my trauma an idol, food an idol, TV an idol. It's so many things. When you like sit down and really break this down, you will see how these things that you have made your idol has actually helped to create an unhealthy dynamic between you and your loved ones and you and your spouse. And so I've realized that I've put pressure on Shannon, not just because I want him to change, but I've made him an idol. I've made our marriage an idol instead of saying, you know what, this is a gift that God has blessed us with. And how do I show up as my best self instead of trying to make him show up as his best self? And so now I just have the mentality of I'm going to be my best self so that I can make sure I can deal with his worst self. Right? Me making him an idol is you have to show up for me. And it doesn't work like that.
And so that is so good. So when we think about, God being 1st, right? Then our spouse, and then our children. That
Absolutely.
sounds good, right? Until you have kids,
Right.
right? That sounds good until you're putting everything into your relationship. So, what advice, what strategies, what tips do you have for us to make sure that we keep the order the way it was intended to be?
So the first thing is really looking in the mirror, right? Our relationship did not begin to change until Shannon took his eyes off of Shirley and Shirley took her eyes off of Shannon. Period. I had to sit with God and I was like, God, I can't take this no more. I keep trying to change. I spent years trying to change Shannon and it's breaking me. I need you to show me me. And when that happened, God was like, now we can get to work, right? So that's the first step is going inward. You are your own enemy. And so I had to realize that I was not seeing myself how Shannon saw me. I kept blaming Shannon. So I could not work on me, right? So once I began to work on me, that means really looking at my blind spots and being honest about it, my weaknesses and being honest about how I am a horrible wife and being honest about it, right? So once I was able to do that, God began to put me in a position, and this is a crazy thing, because we say, God, I want to be so much like you, right? We want to embody the fruits of the Spirit, but Jess, God has literally given us the platform within our marriage. And so I had to learn that when Shannon frustrated me and pissed me off, I couldn't match that energy. I had to be like, okay, Shirley, it's time for you to embody the fruits of the Spirit, right? And so that's me not putting I'm not putting him first. I'm really putting God first because I'm being who God has called me to be in spite of who Shannon is. However Shannon shows up, that's his responsibility, and he has to account to God for that. And how I show up, I got to account to God for that.
So talking about showing up, which is so good, I'm being so transparent with y'all. If you ever have the pleasure to work with Shannon and Shirley, I gotta say, get ready, get ready, get ready, because you don't know what you're gonna get. I'll never forget in my entire life. You know how somebody say something to you and it just rings into your soul and then it pierces you and then you're bleeding out and then the blood is trickling. Have you ever? I love that Rob was like, yeah, Coach Jess, she cut me like that every time we talk. So Shannon was like, question for you. I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm great with questions, right? You know, you see on TV, I love questions. He's like, are you a horrible wife? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I wouldn't classify myself as horrible. He's like, you're the best wife on the planet or you're the worst. There's no in between. And I'm sitting in silence for at least 3 minutes. And he's like, if you can't say it, I can't help you. And I had to like, Coach Crump, be like, oh, woo, is there another word that's a little bit softer than horrible? And I realized it's okay to be horrible if you desire to be the best.
That's right.
And I think some of you in this audience are too worried about what horrible looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And to acknowledge where you currently are and where you desire to be, you can actually get there, right? So sometimes we can just stay in denial. We're like, I don't know why things aren't working out. Acknowledgement is first.
Yes.
And that's why there has to be accountability. It's so interesting. There's accountability for your goals. There's accountability for weight loss. But where's the accountability for relationships? We're just out here winging it. And that's why I'm so grateful to Shannon and Shirley for the influence that they have had in our lives. But my question to you is, what accountability have you put into place for your relationships? So talk a little bit about what accountability looks like.
Accountability looks like perspective, right? One of the challenges that a lot of people have in their marriage, in their relationship, is we keep trying to change somebody else. And so, accountability for me was being able to see that I am not who I think I am. And once I'm able to see that I'm not who I think I am, then I'm able to actually be who it is that God has called me to be and who I want to become. Perspective, right? How do I see Shannon? I have to hold myself accountable to that. Am I going to always see the worst in him because he hurt, right? We focus so much on the hurt and the pain that we can't get to the healing. So I had to be like, man, Shirley, like you have to hold yourself accountable for like you are your biggest problem. Stop trying to get Shannon to fix your pain by sugarcoating his words. When he shares with me, babe, I don't like X, Y, and Z, I didn't like the way he was saying it, right? So I had to start holding myself accountable. Like, stop being concerned about how he's saying it. Let him be concerned with that. And the crazy thing is, as I do that, he becomes more concerned about how he says things to me, right? Because I'm concerned and he's feeling the energy of, man, I can share something with my babe and it's not affecting her the way it used to affect her. Like she's receiving it. And that's one of the biggest things. We're coaching couples. I'm telling y'all, it's one of the biggest things with men and women. A man could share something with his woman and she is going to take it personal. Ladies, it's not personal. Because either you married a evil man or you marry somebody who's saying, hey, this is how I feel. Now, he might not be able to share it in a way that you want, but in time, as you begin to receive what he's saying, his heart is going to soften, right? And so, listen, accountability, people think that it's painful, but it's really painful when you don't hold yourself accountable.
That is so good. That's so good. I want to end here and talking about pain. We're talking about the deeper things. We have to end on forgiveness. Talk about what it takes to actually forgive
Mm.
to actually release?
Mm.
And how do you know when it's complete? Sometimes you can feel like, oh, like I forgave somebody, like that's cute, like yay me. But then like fruit starts to show up, like whether you actually have forgiven or not. So talk a little bit about that and like the effects of not forgetting.
Man, that's a lot, right? That's
It is
heavy.
a lot for 2 minutes.
Yeah. I was, talking to the ladies about forgiveness, and I would just, this is what I'll say. I will encourage you all to do something, and that is to journal all the people that you need to forgive. Um, and trust me, when you do this process from a spiritual construct, there will be people on that list that you had no idea you needed to forgive. There's something that happens to us when we're able to release, right? Because when we don't forgive, that means we're holding a certain energy in us. That energy actually is keeping us from completely fulfilling our listen. There's some of you guys who you're going to conference after conference after, and you're like, you're trying to find that thing. You don't need to go to another conference. You just need to forgive, and you need to let go. Trust me, y'all. Everything that we need, it is in us. It is internal. And I have a situation with a sibling of mine, um, and I was just telling him, like, he has an issue against me. And I know we all say, somebody's upset at me and I don't even know why. It's not that I don't know why, but I didn't do the thing that he is accusing me of doing. And I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Because I want to live authentically in Christ, I'm going to love him in spite of. I'm, listen, however you treat me, that's on you. But I'm not going to match your energy. And for me, when it comes to forgiveness, listen, it's still a journey.
Yeah.
It is still a journey. But some of you all are holding on to it for dear life, and it's choking you. And you're just not going to be able to get to the next level. What that looks like for you, I don't know. Like that's really too deep. That's deep to go into, right? But I will say this: if you're dealing with unforgiveness, I would seek counseling, or
And
and right, I would seek counseling and really be butt naked honest with God about what you won't let go of and why you won't let go of it. I guarantee you, whatever the answer that you receive, you're going to realize it's not worth you not fulfilling your purpose. It just isn't.
wow, that is so powerful. Give it up for Shirley.